The December wind howled through the empty streets like a hungry wolf searching for prey. Snow fell in thick curtains, covering the city in a blanket of white silence. At an old bus stop on Maple Street, where the streetlight flickered like a dying heartbeat, stood a young woman named Emma Grace. Her thin jacket, bought 3 years ago at a thrift store, did nothing to protect her from the bitter cold. Her fingers, red and numb, clutched a worn backpack that contained everything she owned in this world. Inside that bag was a water bottle, half empty. 2 granola bars she had been saving for 3 days, a notebook filled with poetry nobody would ever read, and a photograph of her mother, who had passed away 6 months ago. Emma's breath came out in white clouds that disappeared into the night. She was not waiting for any bus. The last one had passed 2 hours ago, but she had nowhere else to go. The shelter was full tonight, and sleeping on park benches in this weather meant risking never waking up again. So she stood there, hoping the small roof of the bus stop would at least keep the snow off her head. Emma closed her eyes and tried to remember warmth. She thought about her mother's kitchen, the smell of fresh bread on Sunday mornings, the sound of her mother humming while she cooked. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now, someone who had a home, someone who mattered. A tear froze on her cheek before it could fall. She was 23 years old, but tonight she felt ancient, like she had lived 1,000 cold nights already. That was when she heard it, the soft crunch of small footsteps in the snow. Emma opened her eyes to see a little girl, no more than 4 years old, walking toward her. The child wore a bright red coat that looked warm and new, with matching mittens, and a knitted hat with a pom-pom on top. Her cheeks were rosy from the cold, and her big brown eyes stared at Emma with the kind of curiosity only children possess. Behind the little girl, about 20 feet away, a man stood by a car, talking on his phone, his back turned to them. "Hello," the little girl said, her voice like tiny silver bells. "My name is Lily. Are you waiting for the bus too?" Emma tried to smile, though her lips were almost too cold to move. "Hello, Lily. I'm Emma. The bus has stopped running a while ago." Lily tilted her head like a curious puppy. "Then why are you still here? Don't you have a home to go to?" The question hit Emma like a physical blow, but she kept her voice gentle. "Sometimes people have to wait for things, even when they're not sure what they're waiting for." Lily seemed to think about this for a moment, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a chocolate bar, still wrapped in shiny gold paper. "My uncle bought this for me, but you look hungry. You can have it." Emma's eyes filled with tears. This child, this tiny stranger, was offering her probably the only treat she had. "That's very kind of you, Lily, but you should keep it. It's yours." Lily shook her head firmly, the pom-pom on her hat bouncing. "Mommy always said sharing makes everything taste better. She's in heaven now, but I still remember what she said." Emma's heart cracked a little. This child had lost her mother too. She accepted the chocolate bar with shaking hands. "Thank you, sweetheart. Your mommy was right." Lily smiled, then moved closer to Emma, studying her face in that intense way children do when they're thinking hard about something. "You have nice eyes," Lily announced. "They're green like the leaves in spring." Mommy had green eyes too. Then, so quietly Emma almost didn't hear it over the wind, Lily whispered, "Can you be my mommy?" The world seemed to stop. The snow hung frozen in the air, the wind held its breath, and Emma felt her heart shatter and rebuild itself all at once. She knelt down in the snow, not caring that her knees got wet, so she could look Lily in the eyes. "Oh, sweetheart," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I would be honored to be your mommy, but I think your uncle might have something to say about that." Lily's face fell slightly. "Uncle Marcus is nice, but he doesn't know how to braid hair, and he burns the pancakes, and he never remembers to check for monsters under the bed." Mommy always checked for monsters. Emma gently touched Lily's mittened hand. "I bet your uncle is trying his best." Sometimes grown-ups need time to learn these things. But even as she said it, Emma felt something shift inside her chest. This little girl, standing in the snow, offering chocolate and asking for a mother, had awakened something in Emma she thought had died with her own mother. Lily. The man's voice cut through the moment. He was walking toward them quickly, his face a mixture of worry and annoyance. I told you to stay by the car. He was tall, maybe 30 years old, with dark hair that needed a trim and tired eyes that looked like they hadn't seen proper sleep in months. His expensive coat and shoes suggested money, but the way his shoulders slumped suggested a weight that money couldn't lift. Uncle Marcus, I made a friend, Lily announced cheerfully. This is Emma. She has eyes like mommy. Marcus looked at Emma then, really looked at her, and she saw his expression change. He took in her thin jacket, her old boots with holes that let the snow in, the way she was shivering despite trying to hide it. I'm sorry if she bothered you, he said, but his voice was softer than Emma expected. She didn't bother me at all, Emma replied, standing up slowly. Her legs were stiff from the cold. She's a wonderful little girl. You're lucky to have her. Marcus's face did something complicated then, a mixture of pain and love and exhaustion. I'm not sure I'm the lucky one. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. My sister, she would have known. She always knew what to do with Lily. He stopped, himself, seeming to realize he was saying too much to a stranger. Anyway, we should go. Come on, Lily. But Lily had grabbed Emma's hand with her mittened one. Can Emma come with us? Please, Uncle Marcus. She's cold and hungry, and we have that big house with so many empty rooms. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Lily, we can't just invite strangers home. But even as he said it, he was looking at Emma. Again, seeing the way she swayed slightly on her feet. The blue tinge to her lips, the way she was trying so hard to appear strong. Where were you heading? He asked Emma. When the buses start running again, I mean. Emma could have lied. She could have made up a story about friends across town, or a job interview in the morning. But looking at Lily's hopeful face, she found she couldn't. Nowhere, she said quietly. I have nowhere to go. The silence that followed was heavy with possibility. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Emma would come to know meant he was wrestling with a decision. Look, he said finally, I can't just leave you here to freeze. Would you, ... Would you like to come back to our house? Just for tonight? We have a guest room, and you could get warm, have a proper meal. Emma's pride wanted to say no. She had learned not to trust kindness from strangers, learned that everything came with a price. But Lily was jumping up and down, still holding her hand, and the cold was so deep in her bones she thought she might never be warm again. Just for tonight, Emma agreed, her voice barely above a whisper. The car was warm, blessedly warm. Emma sat in the back with Lily, who chatted nonstop about her dolls, her drawings, her favorite books. Marcus drove in relative silence, occasionally glancing at them in the rearview mirror. Emma learned that Lily's mother, Marcus's sister Sarah, had died in a car accident 4 months ago. Marcus, a software engineer who had lived alone his whole adult life, had suddenly become guardian to a 4-year-old niece he loved but didn't know how to raise. The house, when they arrived, took Emma's breath away. It was not a mansion, but it was beautiful, a 2-story colonial, with warm lights glowing in every window. Inside, it was clear that money was not a problem, but also clear that the house was missing something. There were toys scattered everywhere, dishes in the sink, a general sense of chaos that spoke of a man overwhelmed. I'm sorry about the mess, Marcus said, looking embarrassed. I had a housekeeper, but Lily didn't like her. She said she smelled wrong. He shrugged helplessly. I don't know what that means, but Lily was so upset I let her go. Emma looked around, and instead of judgment, she felt understanding. This was a house in mourning, A house trying to figure out how to exist without the person who had made it a home. "Would you mind if I made some tea?" Emma asked. "I could make some for all of us." Marcus looked surprised but nodded. "The kitchen is through there. Make yourself at home." It was a phrase people said without meaning it, but something in his voice suggested he actually meant it. In the kitchen, Emma moved slowly at first, then with growing confidence. She found tea bags, honey, milk. She washed a few dishes while the water boiled, not because she had to, but because it felt good to do something useful. Lily sat at the kitchen table, coloring in a book, occasionally looking up to make sure Emma was still there. When Emma brought the tea to the living room, she found Marcus staring at a photograph on the mantel. It showed him with a woman who looked like an older version of Lily, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. "That's Sarah," he said without Emma asking. "She was the one who knew how to make people feel at home. I can barely manage to keep the plants alive." Emma sat down carefully on the couch, holding her tea like a lifeline. The warmth spread through her fingers, up her arms, into her chest. "Grief makes everything harder," she said softly. "When my mother died, I forgot how to do basic things. I would stand in the grocery store and not remember what food I liked. Everything felt impossible." Marcus turned to look at her, and for the first time, his guard seemed to drop completely. "Yes," he said. "That's exactly it. Everything feels impossible. And Lily needs so much, deserves so much, and I'm failing her every day." "You're not failing her," Emma said firmly. "You're here. You're trying. That matters more than perfect pancakes or braided hair." Marcus almost smiled at that. "You sound like you know something about it." Emma thought about her own childhood, about her mother working 3 jobs to keep them afloat, about love that showed up tired and imperfect but constant. "I know that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real," she said. Lily appeared in the doorway then, rubbing her eyes. "Uncle Marcus, I'm sleepy, but I don't want Emma to leave." Marcus looked at Emma, then at Lily, then made a decision that would change all their lives. "Emma is going to stay in the guest room tonight," he said. "Is that okay with you?" Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. She ran to Emma and threw her arms around her. "Will you tuck me in?" she asked. Emma looked at Marcus, who nodded. "I would love to," Emma said. Lily's room was exactly what a 4-year-old girl's room should be. Pink and purple, with stuffed animals everywhere, and glow-in-thought stars on the ceiling. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, while Lily got under her princess covers. "Emma," Lily said, "will you tell me a story?" "Mommy always told me stories." Emma thought for a moment, then began. "Once upon a time, there was a little star who fell from the sky. She was scared and alone, but then she met a brave little girl who taught her that even fallen stars can shine bright again." As Emma told the story, making it up as she went along, she saw Lily's eyes growing heavy. When the little girl finally fell asleep, Emma carefully tucked the blanket around her and stood to leave. But Lily's hand shot out and grabbed hers. "Promise you'll be here in the morning," she whispered. Emma's heart broke a little. She couldn't make that promise, not really. But looking at this child who had already lost so much, she found herself saying, "I promise." Back downstairs, Marcus had made more tea and was sitting on the couch, looking exhausted. Emma sat in the chair across from him. "She's asleep," she said. Marcus nodded. "You're good with her. Better than I am." Emma shook her head. "You're doing fine. You just need to trust yourself." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Marcus asked, "What happened to you? If you don't mind me asking. You don't seem like someone who should be standing at bus stops in the cold." Emma considered how much to tell him. 6 months ago, I was a graduate student. Literature. I was working on my thesis, living in a small apartment near campus. Then my mother got sick. Cancer. I dropped out to take care of her, used all my savings for her treatment. When she died, there was nothing left. No money, no job, no home. The apartment was in her name, and I couldn't afford to keep it. I've been trying to find work, but without an address, without proper clothes for interviews, it's almost impossible. I've been sleeping in shelters when there's room, and when there's not." She trailed off. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "That's not fair. None of it." Emma shrugged. "Fair doesn't seem to matter much in this world." Marcus stood up suddenly. "Wait here," he said, and disappeared upstairs. He came back with an armload of clothes. "These were Sarah's," he said. "I haven't been able to go through them, but she was about your size, and you need them more than they need to sit in a closet. Please, take whatever fits." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I can't take your sister's clothes." Marcus sat back down, the clothes between them. "Sarah would have given them to you herself," he said. "She was like that. She saw someone who needed help. She helped. No questions, no judgment. She would look at me right now and say, 'Marcus, you idiot. Give the girl the clothes and stop being weird about it.'" Despite everything, Emma laughed. It felt rusty, like a door that hadn't been opened in months. That night, in the guest room that was warmer than any place she'd slept in months, Emma lay awake thinking. She thought about Lily asking if she could be her mommy. She thought about Marcus, trying so hard to hold everything together. She thought about her own mother, who would have told her that sometimes life puts you exactly where you need to be, even if the path there is painful. She got up once to check on Lily, found the little girl sleeping peacefully, her arm around a stuffed elephant. The sight made Emma's chest ache with a longing she hadn't let herself feel in months. The next morning, Emma woke to the smell of burning and the sound of a smoke alarm. She rushed downstairs to find Marcus frantically waving a dish towel at the alarm while Lily stood on a chair, laughing. The pancakes in the pan were charcoal black. "I told you, he burns them," Lily said cheerfully when she saw Emma. Marcus looked mortified. "I was trying to make breakfast," he explained. "Sarah always made pancakes on Sunday." Without thinking, Emma moved to the stove, turned off the heat, and opened windows to let the smoke out. "Do you have more batter?" she asked. Marcus nodded, and Emma set about making new pancakes while Marcus and Lily watched. "The secret," Emma said as she poured perfect circles of batter, "is to wait for the bubbles. When you see bubbles forming and popping on the surface, that's when you flip them." She made a stack of golden brown pancakes, found syrup and butter, and set everything on the table. Lily ate 3 pancakes, getting syrup everywhere, while Marcus watched Emma with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You know," he said finally, "I need help. Not just with Lily, but with everything. I can pay well. Would you consider staying? As a nanny, or housekeeper, or whatever title you want? We have the room, and Lily already loves you, and I clearly need someone who knows when to flip pancakes." Emma's hand stilled. "You don't even know me," she said quietly. "I know you stood in the freezing cold rather than burden anyone else," Marcus said. "I know you were gentle with a grieving child. I know you lost everything taking care of your mother. That tells me more about your character than any resume could." Lily, who had been listening, jumped up and ran to Emma, wrapping her syrupy hands around Emma's waist. "Please stay," she said. "Please, I need you. We both do." Emma looked down at this little girl who had lost her mother, then at this man who had lost his sister and gained a daughter he didn't know how to raise. She thought about her own losses, her own grief, and how sometimes the only way forward is to help carry someone else's burden. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll stay." Lily cheered and danced around the kitchen while Marcus smiled, a real smile. That changed his whole face. The weeks that followed were not easy, but they were good. Emma learned Lily's routines, her fears, her joys. She learned that Lily was afraid of thunderstorms but loved rain. She learned that Lily talked to her mother's picture every night before bed. She learned that Lily was incredibly smart but desperately lonely. missing not just her mother but the sense of security that comes from knowing someone will always be there. Emma also learned about Marcus. He was brilliant at his job but lost in his personal life. He worked from home mostly, and Emma would bring him tea and sandwiches when he forgot to eat. He was patient and kind, but overwhelmed by the responsibility of raising a child. He had loved his sister deeply, and carried guilt about not being there when the accident happened, though he'd been 3 states away at a conference. One evening, about a month after Emma had moved in, Lily had a nightmare. Emma heard her crying, and went to her room, finding the little girl sobbing into her pillow. "I dreamed you left," Lily said between sobs. "Just like Mommy left." Emma gathered Lily into her arms, rocking her gently. "Your mommy didn't want to leave," Emma said softly. "Sometimes people have to go, even when they don't want to." Lily looked up at her with tear-filled eyes. "Will you have to go?" Emma kissed the top of her head. "Not if I can help it," she said. Marcus appeared in the doorway, having heard the crying. He watched Emma comfort Lily, and something in his expression was so vulnerable, it made Emma's heart skip. When Lily finally fell back asleep, Emma and Marcus went to the kitchen for tea, their ritual now. "She's getting attached to you," Marcus said. "I'm getting attached to her too," Emma admitted. "To both of you." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus reached across the table and took Emma's hand. "Emma, I need to tell you something. When I hired you, I thought I was doing you a favor, but the truth is, you saved us. This house was dying before you came. Lily was withdrawing, and I was drowning. You brought life back into this place." Emma squeezed his hand. "You saved me too," she said. "I was nobody, nowhere, nothing. You gave me purpose again. You gave me a family." Marcus stood up, still holding her hand, and pulled her gently to her feet. "Emma," he said softly, "I'm falling in love with you. I know it's complicated. I know it might be too soon, but I needed you to know." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too," she whispered. "Both of you. I love this life we're building, even if it's built on sadness and loss. Maybe especially because of that." Marcus kissed her then, soft and sweet, and full of promise. When they pulled apart, they saw Lily standing in the doorway, her stuffed elephant dragging on the floor. "Are you going to get married?" she asked sleepily. Marcus and Emma looked at each other, then Marcus knelt down to Lily's level. "Would that be okay with you?" he asked. Lily seemed to consider this seriously. "Only if Emma promises to teach you how to braid hair," she said. They all laughed, and Emma scooped Lily up. "I promise," she said. 6 months later, on a warm September day, Emma married Marcus in the backyard of the house that had become their home. Lily was the flower girl, throwing petals with enthusiasm and telling everyone that she had picked Emma to be her new mommy at a bus stop. It was a small wedding, just a few of Marcus's friends and colleagues, but it was perfect. Emma wore one of Sarah's dresses that Marcus had saved, altered to fit, and she carried a bouquet of wildflowers that Lily had helped pick during the reception. Marcus's best friend pulled Emma aside. "I have to tell you something," he said. "The night Marcus brought you home, he called me. He said he'd found this woman at a bus stop, and he thought he was crazy for bringing her home. But he also said there was something about you, something that made him believe in possibilities again. Sarah would be so happy. She always worried about Marcus being alone, and about Lily growing up without a mother. You're an answer to prayers she must have been sending from heaven." That night, after all the guests had gone home, and Lily was asleep, Emma and Marcus stood in their bedroom, looking out at the stars. "Do you remember," Marcus said, "that first night when you promised Lily you'd be here in the morning?" Emma nodded. "I didn't think I could keep that promise," she admitted. "But now, I can't imagine being anywhere else." Marcus wrapped his arms around her. "That title, the one about the bus stop and the shivering girl who had nothing, that's not you anymore." Emma leaned back against him. "No," she agreed. "Now I have everything. But the story wasn't over. Life never is. There were hard days ahead. Days when Lily cried for her birth mother. Days when Emma doubted herself. Days when the grief they all carried threatened to overwhelm them. But there were also birthday parties and Christmas mornings, first days of school, and family vacations. There were quiet evenings reading stories, and loud afternoons playing in the garden. There was healing, slow, and sometimes painful, but real, too. Years later, Emma gave birth to a son they named Samuel, after Sarah and Emma's mother, whose middle name had been Samantha. Lily was thrilled to be a big sister, though she made them promise that she would always be their first baby. "You'll always be the one who found me," Emma told her. "You'll always be the one who asked me to be your mummy when I thought I had nothing left to give." One winter evening, when Samuel was 6 months old and Lily was 6 years old, they drove past the bus stop where it all began. It had been renovated, made warmer and safer, with proper heating and lighting. A plaque on the wall read, "This shelter is dedicated to all those who wait in the cold. May you find warmth, kindness, and hope." Marcus had funded the renovation anonymously, but Emma knew. "That's where I found Mommy," Lily told Samuel, who gurgled happily in his car seat. "She was cold and sad, but I knew she was supposed to be ours." Emma reached back to hold Lily's hand. "And you were right," she said. "I was always supposed to be yours." Marcus drove them home, to their warm house full of toys, and laughter, and love. The house that had once echoed with grief now rang with joy. Not perfect joy, for perfection isn't real, but the kind of joy that comes from choosing to build something beautiful from broken pieces. As they pulled into the driveway, Emma saw their house lit up against the dark winter night, and she thought about that cold December evening when she had nothing. Now she had everything that mattered. She had been a shivering girl at a bus stop, with nothing, until a child whispered, "Can you be my mommy?" And in saying yes to that impossible request, she had found not just a home, but a purpose, a family, and a love that transformed all their broken pieces into something whole. The years passed, as years do. Lily grew into a confident, compassionate young woman who volunteered at homeless shelters and studied social work in college. She never forgot the cold night when she met Emma, and she spent her life making sure other people didn't have to stand in the cold alone. Samuel grew up knowing the story of how his family came to be, and he treated it like the miracle it was. Marcus's business thrived, but more importantly, he became the father he never thought he could be, patient and present and full of love. And Emma became exactly who she was meant to be, a mother, a wife, a writer who finally finished that thesis and went on to write books about resilience and hope. But mostly, she was the woman who said yes to love when she had every reason to say no. She was the woman who took a chance on a strange little family that needed her as much as she needed them. She was proof that sometimes the worst moments of our lives are just preparing us for the best ones. Every December, on the anniversary of that night at the bus stop, they had a tradition. They would drive to that renovated shelter and serve hot meals to anyone who needed them. Lily would hand out chocolate bars to children, the same kind she had offered Emma all those years ago. Marcus would make sure everyone had warm coats and gloves, and Emma would sit with people who looked lost and alone, and she would tell them, "It gets better. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but it gets better." One particularly cold December night, 20 years after that first meeting, they were at the shelter when a young woman walked in. She was thin, cold, carrying everything she owned in a single bag. She had that same look Emma had once worn, the look of someone who had given up on being seen. Lily, now 24, and working on her master's degree, approached her gently. "Hi," she said. "I'm Lily. Can I sit with you?" The woman nodded, too tired to speak. Lily sat down and pulled out a chocolate bar. "My mom taught me that sharing makes everything better," she said. "Would you like some?" As the woman took the chocolate, her eyes filled with tears. "Nobody's been kind to me in so long," she whispered. Lily smiled, that same bright smile she'd had as a 4-year-old. "Then let's change that," she said. "Tell me your story." And as Emma watched her daughter, the little girl who had once asked a stranger to be her mommy, now offering that same transformative kindness to someone else, she knew that their story had come full circle. Love, real love, doesn't just change the people who receive it. It multiplies, spreads, and creates ripples that touch lives in ways we never imagined. Later that night, as they drove home together, 4 of them plus the young woman Lily had insisted needed a warm place to stay, Emma thought about the title of their story. At the bus stop, a shivering girl had nothing until a child whispered, "Can you be my mommy?" It had been true once. She had been that shivering girl with nothing, but now, surrounded by the family that had chosen her and that she had chosen in return, she knew that sometimes having nothing is just the beginning of having everything. Sometimes the coldest nights lead to the warmest homes, and sometimes a child's whispered wish can change not just one life, but generations of lives to come. As they pulled into their driveway, where lights glowed warm in every window, and love waited behind every door, Emma whispered a thank you to the universe, to Sarah, watching from heaven, to her own mother who had taught her that love persists even through loss, and mostly to a little girl in a red coat who had seen past her circumstances, to her heart. "Welcome home," Marcus said, as he said every night. And Emma smiled, because she knew that home wasn't just a place. It was these people, this love, this life they had built from a chance encounter at a bus stop on the coldest night of the year. She was home, and she always would be, because love, real love, the kind that starts with a child's innocent question and grows into a lifetime of belonging, that kind of love never lets you go, and she wouldn't have it any other way. The end. If this story touched your heart, remember that kindness can change lives. Sometimes all it takes is seeing someone, really seeing them, and offering them a chance to belong. Share this story with someone who needs to know that even in the coldest, darkest moments, hope can arrive in the smallest packages, sometimes even in the form of a child's whispered wish.